Welcome back to the channel, guys. In today's video, what I want to do is actually go through various side hustles that so-called experts are proposing and just go through a number of them and give you my honest feedback of what I think about them, how likely those are to generate you money, and how easy or difficult and most importantly time-consuming it is to actually get started with those. Personally, I've tried a number of them, so I can actually give you my honest feedback about them. Without further ado, let's get started. Now, if there's one thing that's definitely not lacking on YouTube, is videos about various side hustles. I mean, you will find them one way or the other. If you've ever been using YouTube extensively, you will come across that. And yeah, a lot of ways. And honestly, I think that's great. I've also done my own videos about side hustles, and I really think it's an amazing topic to talk about because it also inspired me to get started with my first, businesses here and there, just to try out and get your feet wet, so to say. But then again, some of the people take it a little bit too extreme and tell you stories about side hustles of becoming the next millionaire and billionaire and what have you. And honestly, that kind of defeats the purpose of a side hustle. A side hustle is complementing your income that you have from your normal job or business that you're running, and just kind of over time scale it up. And eventually you might go full time with it. But be it as it may, let's use Shopify's suggestions of 25 side hustle ideas for making you money in your spare time. And obviously Shopify is a trusted online source, a great tool that I use myself as well. So I think that's a really good source to base this discussion around. So starting off with the first one, which is monetizing a YouTube channel. Now, obviously, that's very dear to my heart because clearly that's what I'm doing right now. I have been doing YouTube now for the last 2.5 years and also started off as a hobby or side hustle, I would say. I genuinely believe still today, YouTube is one of the best things that you can do. But be very mindful. A lot of creators showing you, well, start a YouTube channel and start making thousands in ad revenue. And while this could be for some people, I always give the analogy of football players, right? All the people see Messi and Ronaldo and say, wow, for kicking the ball around for 90 minutes, they're getting paid millions and millions of dollars. But what they don't see or forget to see is how many other millions of footballers are out there making literally zero money, right? You only see the top of the top. And that's the same when you look at those YouTube videos when they showcase, the analytics and how much they earn from YouTube. And of course, it's inspiring. To be honest, it also inspired me. And yes, that's one of the reasons I do these videos, to make money from it, right? I mean, I could also do other things with my time, but it has so many benefits. On the one hand side, the financial aspect, but on the other hand, also the community building. And later on, how you can use the community for other things, for networking, for building other businesses. So there are a lot of benefits, but definitely monetization is one of them. But I'll be very honest, even though I'm in the finance space and business building space, I mean, the CPMs, what I get per 1,000 views, the money is definitely much higher than some other vlogging or lifestyle or cooking channels. So that's really good. But still, to build the subscriber base and get those views, it can really take time. As I said, I've been doing it now for 2.5 years. Now, the last few months, 3 videos a week, and you can still see my subscriber count below 10,000. So it really is a marathon, not a sprint, and not something you start today and start making that sweet, sweet cash tomorrow. It really takes time, but if you stick with it, I think in the long term, it can be super, super rewarding. And as I said, not just from a financial point of view, but open up so many doors, contacts, what have you. So definitely something that I can really recommend for you. If you're serious about it, definitely go after it. Next one is about selling digital products. And obviously, that's super cool. I really think it's one of the best things that you can do because you don't have any inventory that you carry with you, right? We'll come to this in a second, but doing things like your own online shop, you need to have inventory, different sizes. You ship it, they don't like it, the customers, they return it to you. Digital program, it's very simple. You create it at the comfort of your home. It could be a video, it could be a course, a PDF, online book, what have you, so many different things. You put them online, people see it, they like it, they buy it, you get the money, and that's it. Pretty much 100% profit for you. So I think it's one of the best ways how you can make money online. Though, at the same time, in order to sell something online, you need a certain credibility. You need a certain reach, right? And you don't just do it by opening your website and people start coming to you. For that, you need to have marketing, you have advertising, you need to reach different channels. Ideally, you want to build your own personal brand. That's probably done through using different social media channels, such as YouTube, what we talked about. So that's one of the reasons why I like YouTube so much, but it could be through LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Once you have a certain following, then selling online digital products is amazing and definitely something I want to do in the future. Once my following increases, I want to have some kind of digital product that I can layer on top of my YouTube videos. Becoming an online tutor or language course. Now, I don't have much experience with this. It seems to be something that is feasible. If that's something you want to do, that's great. But for me, I rather build a little business that's my own. Here, you're basically part of various platforms and you're kind of a freelancer. You sell your time for money and that's great. But I'm always a fan of being able to scale because time is limited, right? Here, you can only charge so much for your hour. And as we said, it's a side hustle. So obviously that's before or after work on the weekend. And you're only going to be able to have a couple of hours dedicated for that. So I think, while it can work to make a little bit of money on the side, not sure that would be my favorite idea to go about. Next up is delivering packages. And honestly, it's probably the simplest, easiest side hustle to get into. You sign up with various careers or logistic providers. Most likely in your cities, there's a number of them. You just sign up and you're ready to go and start making money right away. But once again, you're trading your time for money. And there, the earning potential is somewhat limited. But then again, if you're not comfortable in front of a camera or having digital skills, even though these are things that can be learned, that's probably the easiest way. If you need quick cash, definitely it's one of the low-hanging fruits. But personally, not something I'd be doing or very excited about because ultimately, you're still kind of working for somebody else. The next side hustle has to do with starting your own podcast. Now, similar to starting your own YouTube channel, that has so many benefits. I would probably just say that's more towards people who are more comfortable speaking to other people rather than in front of a camera. And also another huge benefit of having your own podcast is that you really open up your network, because if you reach out to CEOs or founders of other businesses just by email asking them for their opinion and their feedback and some guidance, they hardly ever reply to you. However, if you start inviting them to your own podcast and you have a certain audience and a certain size, then more likely than not, people are going to say yes and come onto your podcast, and then you can start having that dialogue, start building that relationship, and that will open more doors in the future. So I think it's a great way. Obviously, you can also monetize it later on if you have a larger following with sponsorships, etc. But I think for that, YouTube is probably easier to monetize. Starting your own podcast does take time, but in the long run, can really build your own credibility, build a bigger network, which you can then later use to monetize for future business endeavors. Then we come to print on demand, designing and selling your own t-shirts. That's everyone's dream, right? It sounds so simple. There's so many tools online. I use them myself as well. We basically slap a simple design on a shirt, put it on your online store, people buy it, then you send that order to a fulfillment center, they fulfill it for you, print it, and ship it to a client. So you don't have any inventory, you don't have to do anything manually, everything is done online, it's really perfect. But honestly, I really think it's so saturated. There's so many people doing it. If you see on YouTube, there's hundreds and hundreds of channels just dedicated towards printing t-shirts. And while I still think it could be potential that you make a bit of money, I really doubt that you're easily gonna be taking off and start making thousands and thousands a month. And if you do, your profits might be very little because the margins are really quite tight because there's so many players doing it. You're not going to start selling your shirt for $60. You're going to be quite competitively priced because ultimately it's just a shirt. So you have to be very competitive and you're going to have to spend a lot of money on marketing, ads, etc. So I think your margins are very little. If you manage to sell some, yes, most likely you can, but I think the profitability is very little on that. And now with all these AI generated tools, I think more and more people are going to go after this, completely automizing everything from the art creation to the printing to the selling. So I think it's super, super competitive and honestly not something I would recommend anyone to do. If you are doing it and having success, congratulations, you're doing it great. But at the same time, I personally wouldn't want to get into the space. Another one that seems to be quickly growing because obviously after the last 2-3 years when none of us could leave home, it seems most people got some kind of pet, most likely a dog. And now we're back to work, we're going about our own lives, and often the pets are all alone and the owners feel sad about it. So what happens? There are more and more dog sitters and dog walkers out there that you can hire on an hourly rate. They go from house to house, you start building up a relationship and they can really start making good money. Some of them I've seen in the US, they actually do 4 or 5 dog walks at the same time. They just collect the dogs in the same neighborhood and then 5 dogs at the same time at 20 euros a pop. That's 100 euros or dollars an hour just for walking dogs, right? So that's really good. If you do a few of those a day, it can get really lucrative. Now again, as much as I love dogs, personally, I wouldn't do it because once again, I'm trading time for money. While you can get quite a bit of money for the time, I don't see myself doing this long term. But if you want to just get started with something, I think definitely, put a little landing page, put some flyers around in your neighborhoods, run a few local ads, definitely something to try out. In my local neighborhood, I don't know anyone doing this. And I think in many other cities in Europe and other parts of the world, it's still not so common. So definitely there could be a niche for you. Now the next one is similar to driving around parcels, but instead you're driving around passenger. So basically you become an Uber driver, Lyft driver, Bolt driver, and just sign up to any of those platforms, register yourself there with your car, and boom, you're good to go to start basically working as a taxi driver, which you can do on your own terms, right? You can swipe in and swipe out of your work duties whenever you're available. And honestly, I know quite a few people who are making a lot of money and they're having also fun because, you get to drive different people, make connections, etc. So once again, if that's something for you, that you really just want something easy, you don't want to use your mind too much, you just drive them around, nothing wrong with this. I think you can definitely complement some extra income, which you can then maybe save up to later on start your own business or what have you. So again, not something I would do myself, but I can definitely see the appeal, why so many people are doing it. And I generally think there's nothing wrong with it to get you started and making a little bit of extra money on the side. In line with that, instead of driving passengers, you could also deliver groceries or other items where there's a lot of services in different cities like Instacart, SparkDriver, DoorDash, and all these different platforms. Once again, you just easily sign up to them and then you start delivering. So, maybe check out what pays the most. Ask some people around. There's local Facebook groups in your city where you can go in and see what people are talking about, because sometimes, these delivery companies pay better than other times. These kind of taxi hailing companies are paying better. So just check out, see also what you prefer, because some people like the guest interaction. Other people want to talk as least as possible. So maybe then driving goods around is better. So check it out, but definitely it's all very similar. You get paid for every single delivery that you do. The next one has to do with capitalizing the space that you have or where you're living in. Now, that might be a little bit tricky because most likely if you start looking into side hustle, you're most likely renting your apartment yourself. So there you need to check if you can actually sublease an apartment, because some of the landlords won't allow you to sublease a room if you live in a bigger apartment and they control the process. If they do, or somehow you have your own apartment, that is something which you could potentially look into to utilize and maximize the space you're living in. If you live in a big house and you only use 2 rooms, another 2 rooms are spare, you could potentially rent it out and get a bit of extra income. But again, that's not really a side hustle, because in that way, you're just renting out stuff that you already have. It is a way to get extra income, but once again, it wouldn't be something that I want to do, because personally, I want to have my own space. I don't want to share it with other people. But if you're open to that and you have the space and the ability to rent it out, then definitely something to consider. Now, the next side hustle has to do with offering digital marketing services. And this could really be anything from running freelancer services where you, for example, approach small local businesses and volunteer to run their ads or their social media, what have you. Or on the other hand, you actually start creating your own agency in which you hire freelancers and they then do the work, fulfill the work for you, for other clients that you sign up on a retainer basis, on a monthly basis. Once again, it could be all different kinds of services. Even building websites is something that's becoming more and more popular, where, for example, you look up local businesses that don't really have a website or very old or poor website. You approach them and say, listen, I can build your website for X amount, and then you pay me a monthly fee for maintaining it. And I've seen a lot of people having success with this, especially if you have some good digital skills yourself. There's so many old school businesses out there that could really benefit from your skill set. So I think that really has potential. But once again, it's not something that comes overnight. You really have to start thinking about your niche, building up your website, web presence, online credibility, and only then start approaching. So that's something I'm really a big advocate of, and something in a certain tweaked way I will be doing myself, but more from a software point of view. But definitely online marketing is something we all need, any business needs in the times we're living in. So if you have those kind of skills, or if you don't have them, you can learn them. I mean, all information is out there. It's not rocket science, but with this knowledge, you can definitely start monetizing it. And I think that's something that really can scale. You can even start off by yourself and later on at team members. But I really think that's a great side hustle that can later on morph into a proper full-time business for you. Now, the next one has to do with becoming an affiliate marketer. Now, that sounds very nice. And once again, you hear a lot about this on YouTube. And personally, that's actually currently the biggest side hustle income source for myself. So whenever you watch any of my YouTube videos and people click on my links and sign up with any of the services, I get a little small commission in return, and that's called affiliate marketing. And that's actually much bigger than my YouTube revenue. So it can really be lucrative. And even though I still have a very small following, you can only imagine if that grows over time, that can really start becoming a substantial amount. But once again, that sounds really easy to do, and we all understand the logic for it. You sign up with the affiliate program, you share a link, people click on it, you make money. Very easy, very simple to understand. But the problem that people don't talk to you about, you need a following, you need a community, that people actually see it. Now, I do know people who are quite successful with this without even showing their face. They're running faceless YouTube channels, for example, or they just write blogs without any identity, travel blogs, let's say, but they never show their face. And in those blogs, they integrate various affiliate links that people can click on. So it can work, but personally, I think it's much more relatable. If you have a creator that you like yourself, you've been following for a number of months or years even, you're more likely to follow their advice and click on their links or buy their products then somebody you've never seen. At least for me, especially these days, there are so many scams out there that I'm very careful on whom I follow and more importantly, which links I'm clicking on. But if you start building up that following, and as I said previously also with the podcast, over time, you can really start making some serious dough with affiliate marketing. The next side hustle actually has to do with starting your own blog or newsletter. Now, blog, I wouldn't really recommend that much because honestly, I think we're slowly going away from blogging with AI taking over. So many blogs are going to be AI generated. But for example, having your own newsletter could be such a powerful tool. And why not to get started on Substack, which is free of charge. It's actually the tool I'm using myself. I don't have an affiliate link for it, but I can really recommend it. Get started with it. It's free of charge. And just even once a month, you start sending emails about a certain topic, and that should go in parallel while you build your own online persona on different channels. Because if you just build a newsletter, nobody will find it necessarily. You need to have some kind of discovery channel that could be LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, any social media where you start building up following, but then funnel those people into your email newsletter, because that's a platform agnostic tool that you can use, and you're going to be independent of those various algorithm changes that happen all the time, right? And that way you have direct access to people's inbox. And let's be honest, all of us, we check our emails anyways way too much. And email is still so powerful, much more powerful than some of those social media channels, because there, once again, your people may not even see. When I post on YouTube, some of my subscribers, they say that they didn't even notice my videos. In the inbox, most likely people will see you one way or the other. So definitely that's something I really recommend to get started. And in there, you can obviously naturally integrate also some various links, going back to affiliate marketing, where people click on it and you start making some money. So definitely, there's no reason not to go ahead with starting your own email newsletter. The next one they mentioned over here is selling photography. Now that's something I don't have much experience about. I like taking pictures, but I think you have to be extremely good to really get people to buy photography from you. Now, personally, I never bought any photography online. And I think especially now, as I said before, in the times of generative AI, I just played around with DALL-E 3. It's so good. I just put in there what I want and it really looks realistic. So I think it's going to be harder and harder for photographers to sell that. But once again, maybe you are gifted, maybe you have certain angles or a niche and you can make money. But I think actually a better way would be selling LUTs, which are some kind of filters. These are presets, for example, for Lightroom that you download, you apply them to your picture and boom, immediately they look so much more professional. So that's something people want. They want to take their own picture, but they want to make them look somewhat better. So I think that's a better way to go about that. The next one they mentioned here is participating in paid online service. Now, personally, I tried it myself as well because I was so excited in the beginning of my side hustle journey. I thought, what? I'm going to get money for completing surveys. But honestly, if it sounds too good to be true, most likely it is. There's so many drawbacks over here. I was really mindlessly clicking around. And in the end, you're going to get paid peanuts, basically. And obviously, so many people want to do this. Everybody wants to earn. Once again, now you have AI kind of completing some of those tools. So I think the payout ratio is really not worth your time. And it's not really something I take pride in. And clicking around a survey and get a bit of sense for that. So it's not something I would recommend. Again, some people might make a bit of money, but I think the long-term earning potential from this is really very limited. Similarly to that, to get paid testing various apps and websites. Now, you could do that, and there are various servers out there. Some of them actually pay quite well, but you also have to really test them. And for some of them, you also have to film yourself while using the app. So for me, it's a little bit too intrusive when they film me while I use the website. I understand that, obviously, if you are the app creator or the website developer, you want to see really the real-life emotion and how you use it. For me, it's not something I see myself doing, but yeah, it can really pay a couple of $100 if you do it seriously. And then there are also focus groups. I've actually been approached once on LinkedIn. A new company in the field wanted to get some insights, and they actually paid me €200 for a 1-hour call just to provide some insights and information about the industry I'm working in. And that was nice. I think those high-paying gigs are not coming all the time. You might have one or two, but that's not something that is consistently coming in. So personally, I wouldn't really go too much after that. The next one is becoming a transcriber or translator. And once again, honestly, with AI getting so good, I just don't think this is really relevant anymore. And the pay is accordingly going to go down and down and down over time because it just becomes a commodity. Now, I don't need a person anymore to translate. I can do these things through machine learning. Even they can change entire YouTube videos these days, where they can basically transcribe my entire video and even change the motion of my mouth to that new language. So basically, they're dubbing me into another language. That's soon going to come to many video players out there. So I really don't think you need humans for that anymore. So the pay is becoming increasingly less. So I don't think that's something you should be pursuing. Creating and selling your own handmade goods, I think that's definitely something still really relevant. I've done that myself for a while, selling scented candles which I've done for a while during the time when we couldn't leave our houses. I had nothing else to do. And honestly, I made a bit of money, right? So if that's something you really enjoy, you have a passion for craft and so on, selling these things on Etsy or other channels or having your own Shopify page, I generally think if you do something a little bit different with a twist, you can really stand out and start making money. So I think if you have that special skill and passion for something crafty, something you can sell, I really think that's still one of the best ways you can really build your own side hustle, which over time can morph into a full-time gig for you. But that's definitely, for me personally, much better than just driving people around. But once again, it has to work for you, because that also takes a lot more time and dedication after work, before work, on the weekends to get this thing started. Mowing lawns and other landscaping services. Now, by now you probably get my drift. I'm not really a fan of trading time for money. While you could make money with this, once again, I think a lot of people struggle and don't like the idea of looking after their own garden. Personally, it's not something I'm really excited about or anything I will be pursuing. At the same time though, it's probably one of the faster ways to start making money now, rather than building up a YouTube channel or podcast, which takes much more time until you start making money. The next one has to do with starting a dropshipping business. Now, I've also done 2 of those shops myself and actually did make a bit of money. But once again, the idea is so nice, right? That basically you don't hold any inventory. You would, for example, buy an item from China at a very low cost, market it very nice, try to sell it online very attractively, and then people buy it through your Shopify shop, for example. And then whenever they buy it, you place the order in China and ship it to them. So it sounds very good, but at the same time, there are a lot of drawbacks, because now with the world economy being what it is, delivery times are so slow. If you send something from China, it can take 3-4 weeks, and then the client doesn't want to wait that long anymore. If they return it, that's a nightmare. And once again, there's so many players now in the niche. Now, I know still people doing that and making money, but for most people just getting started, I really think it's such a saturated field and very difficult to get traction. And once again, while you make money, if you put a lot of money behind the ads and reach a bigger audience, at the same time, your margins, what you really pocket afterwards, I think can be really slim. And usually people only show you the revenues online when they make those videos about it, but they don't really show you what is left at the end of the month after all the dropshipping costs, all the returns, the ads and marketing. Ultimately, there's very little money left. So for me, I like the idea of it, but generally I'm not the biggest fan of dropshipping. Then I prefer doing your own business where you really start selling your own products, because then you control the whole process. And I think it's a much better experience. Yes, it can be more expensive. Yes, it will take longer to get you started, but long term, I think it's probably a better option than just another dropshipping business. Next one is about creating your own clothing line. And well, who wouldn't want to have their own clothing line? That's something I always thought about. It would be so cool if people start wearing my clothes. But now, a few years later, I really think what a struggle it is. And I speak to a lot of people who own clothing stores, and they tell me it's so challenging, especially with the returns. Because so many people order 10, 15, 20 products. They might only pick 1 or 2, the rest they returns. So you then have to deal with all the returns. Once again, the margins are rather slim, because how much you're going to charge for a jumper? Most likely less than 100 euros. So it's going to get more and more challenging. The space is super saturated, and you really have to find an angle to set yourself apart. It's going to be difficult to just sell a black t-shirt and put a little name on here that people are going to pay you money for it. So you have to come up with a good angle. So unless you're really a celebrity where people just buy it from you because they like to support you, otherwise, just to create a brand out of blue, I think it's very challenging. I'm not saying it can't be done. We see this all the time, how it can succeed. But if you're just starting it as a pure side hustle and don't want to have too much upfront cost, I really don't think that's the best way for you to get started. Then, of course, you could do other services around the house, offering to wash their car and other things that people don't like to do that you can help them with. But as I said many times before, I'm not a fan of trading time for money. So here you clearly do that. And yeah, not something that's really scalable, especially on the weekends when it rains, etc. I also don't want to be out there washing cars or in the garden, cutting the grass. So yeah, I rather prefer to work from a nice coffee shop and do something online rather than these things. But once again, if that's something that works for you, why not to go after it? Next one has to do with sponsorship, and that's the ultimate dream, right? You basically get paid for talking about a product or using a service and sharing it with your audience. I mean, that's something I would hope to do one day also. So far, I didn't have a full-time sponsor with my videos yet, but hopefully as my channel grows, one day I will have certain services and products, collaborating with me where I talk about them and they pay me something in return. Or for example, travel influencers, who travel to a nice property and they basically get to stay for free just in return for a few posts or stories. And yeah, I think it's a win-win, and that's definitely something how you can make some nice side income. And for big creators, this can really become their main source of revenue actually. But at the same time, nobody's going to sponsor you if you don't have a following, right? The whole point for a company to sponsor you is to get more awareness for the company. So if you have a very small audience, the pay is also going to be very small. But if you start growing it, it doesn't mean you need to have hundreds of thousands of followers. But if you have a loyal and dedicated following, you can really start connecting with some brands in your space and start signing some smaller sponsorship deals, which can really be quite lucrative. Giving tours in your neighborhood, that's probably something good if you're a student or really early on in your career. Why not? If you know your neighborhood well, you like history and like talking to people, that could be something fun to do on the weekends or after work, to take people around, explain your city, and you can actually get some good side income from that. There's also platforms where you can sign up to become a tour guide. So why not? That's something good, but once again, probably not something that can scale or you can really start making some huge money, but a bit of side income, definitely a great option for that. And the last one has to do with reselling used and vintage goods. Now, this could be your own goods, right? You can really go through, and most likely all of us have way too much stuff at home that we could sell and make some money from it. Or I think an even better idea, because that's something I struggle with myself. I have so much stuff around, an old gift that I got from somebody that I never used. I could sell online, definitely. I could make 20, 30 euros from it. But honestly, for me, to take the picture, write the description, sign up with it, then interact with the client, and then give it to them, for me, it's just not worth it. If there was somebody that could come to my house or I could give those items, they do all the process for me, and then we do a revenue share, maybe 50-50 or 70-30, whatever. But that would be super attractive for me, because that way I can get rid of the stuff and still make money from it without having the hassles. So I generally think that could be a great idea and big income potential for you and something to consider. Whew. Wow, that was a lot of side hustle. So only 25, there's obviously way more out there. And hopefully it gave you some ideas and guidance and insights into how I think about them. And maybe some of those resonated more with you than others. I think there's no right or wrong. For all of those, you could find reasons for them. And for all of them, you can also find reasons against them. Ultimately, it comes down to you and how much you want it and how much you push and go after it. Anybody over time can start building a social media following online. Anyone can start building a dog walking business, and anyone can become an Uber driver. Ultimately, you need to ask yourself what you really want. Do you want to work from the comfort of your home? Do you want to be out and about to connect with other people? And do you want to trade your time for money? Or do you want to invest into something that takes a bit longer to take off, but long term can really scale infinitely? I'd be excited to hear from you, so let me know in the comments which is your favorite side hustle. Next up, check out this video over here. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching. Stay healthy, get wealthy, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.